Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We turn in the Johnson edition to poem 250, I Shall Keep Singing. And we immediately, of course, are back to the poem that we just studied a few seconds ago, poem 248. Why do they shut me out of heaven? Did I sing too loud? But I can say a little minor, timid as a bird. The idea here is going to be the Promethean Emily one more time. The Emily that says, don't tell me what to do. And we will find this tone again and again through Emily's poetry. Now, this poem actually sat at the bottom of a page of Wild Nights, and this was a poem that we believe was probably for Sam Boyle, so it's probably another Sam Boyle's poem. But here, this is more about the longing for, maybe, we think, her poetry to be accepted. And she's going to keep writing. She's going to keep singing. We've seen this in a number of earlier studies. And again, our assumptions that you've been following us along with those earlier studies at learnstrong.net, down the left-hand side, again, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you already worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you, as well, have been reading with us up through poem 249 we just finished with Wild Nights. Now here, there is a longing of Emily's, but it doesn't seem to be for so much acceptance as it is maybe a confidence as a poet to keep going. And in some ways, we are back to poem 248 as we just mentioned. Let's enjoy the poem. She says it this way, sounding very Promethean. I shall keep singing. Birds will pass me on their way to yellower climes, each with a robin's expectation, I with my red breast and my rhymes. Late, when I take my place in summer, but I shall bring a fuller tune. Vespers are sweeter than Martin's, Signor. Morning, only the seed of noon. Now in Emily's poetry, noon is often, almost always, associated with fulfillment, with fruition. And in that regards, this is a poem that culminates from I Will Keep Singing to the idea that, no, I'm going to get to what I want. And, you know, in some ways, all of this is pointing to, this is my letter to the world that never wrote to me. And the idea is that, you know, she's going to ultimately give her letter to the world. And this will be in the form of song. Of course, she'll liken herself to a bird. Let's analyze. I shall keep singing. Birds will pass me, maybe other poets, on their way to yellower climes, each with his robin's expectation. We've obviously seen the referencing to robins. I with my red breast and my rhymes. It is interesting how often Emily will play games with rhymes. She doesn't always rhyme. Here, obviously, rhymes is going to be the stand-in for her lines, her poetry, and the like. But then she'll come to this word, and I think this is the key word. If futile was the key word of Wild Nights of 249, then I think late is the word here. In other words, it's going to take time. I think Emily understood something about poetics, and that is, it takes a long time to be able to find the poetic voice that ultimately becomes the voice that poet is most comfortable with. Late, when I take my place in summer, maybe that is the suggestion of afterlife, but I shall bring a fuller tune. In other words, I'm gonna write something that's way better than anything that's being written by anyone else. And then she'll say it using religious language. Vespers are sweeter than Martin's, the song Vespers, the song of evening, better than the song of the morning. In other words, at the end of the day, one prays even more purely. And then she uses those words, Signor. Many have said this is probably a reference to Sam Boyle's. You'll remember that Beatrice will call Benedict Signor in Much Ado About Nothing, Act 5, Scene 2, line 43. And then she'll say it, morning, only the seed of noon. I think there's a great observation here that whatever happens in our morning is always going to inform what kind of noon we will enjoy. Now, when we get to poem 508, and scholars have kind of pointed this out, we'll come back to this poem. I'm seated. I've stopped being theirs. the name they dropped upon my face with water in the country church is finished using now. And they can put it with my dolls, my childhood, and the string of spools I finished threading too. Baptized before without the choice, but this time consciously of grace, unto supremest name called to my full, the crescent dropped, existence whole arc filled up with one small diadem, my second rank too small, the first crowning on my father's breast a half unconscious queen, but this time adequate, erect, with will to choose or to reject, and I choose just a crown. I think there is a way to read this poem and that poem as being companion reads. That is to say it to you must have confidence in yourself, I think is our argument. And of course, you got to get through the morning to get to the noon fruition. You can't help but love the tone of confidence. If there are poems where Emily is less than confident, here it's pretty clear, her confidence. At 3a, I love to think about Emily reading her Dante, and you'll remember early on that Dante the Pilgrim in Virgil will arrive with that in limbo with those other great poets, and one of them will say, "Is that the great poet Dante?" Of course, it's obviously self-gratifying for Dante to put himself in a poem where other great poets will call him a great poet. But I think Emily is channeling something very similar. In the end, that fuller tune will be hers, which leads us now to 3b. And how are you going to own a set of lines like this? What was a time in your life when you longed to find your fuller tune and to know that, no, even though it might be a rough morning, you're going to have a great noon? I hope your reading of Emily is challenging you. Thank you.